Hi there, Helen Wilkie with your 5-minute author notes. Today I'm going back to the subject of the first draft because I know that this is a particularly intimidating part of the process, especially if you're new to being an author, because this is kind of where the rubber hits the road and you actually have to start writing. So, the technique that I'm going to give you today is going to help you to deal with that. It's going to help you to get words down on paper or on the screen. I developed this method through many years of delivering business writing workshops to companies and to law firms and accounting firms and so on. And one of the things that I taught in these classes was how to write longer written messages such as reports and opinion letters and such like. But then I realized that the same method is useful in writing a book, and I have since then used it myself. And I also teach it to people who I'm teaching how to write books and how to I also coach people through writing their books, and this is one of the methods that I give, and so I'm giving it to you today. Warning, it is a low-tech method, and sometimes people are a little bit leery about that, but once they get into it and they realize how useful it is to do it in this low-tech way, most people are won over. And so the tool that we're going to use for this is the lowly post-it note, or as I like to refer to them, yellow stickies. And as I've said already, I don't know quite how I managed to write anything before these things came along. But anyway, we're going to use yellow stickies for this process. Now, here is how it works. Let's do this chapter by chapter. So let's say we're going to start, and it may not be chapter 1, as I said to you before. Pick a chapter that you think is going to be easy for you because you really know your stuff in this area. So you take this chapter, and in front of you, you're going to have a pad of yellow stickies. And the thing to do is to go through in your mind all your ideas for this particular chapter and jot down on the yellow stickies just keywords that will remind you of these subtopics. And so this goes one step further than the fat outline that I've talked about before. So now you're going to put down just as many things as you can think that you want to mention in this chapter. And on the yellow sticky, you don't write sentences or anything, just a phrase, a couple of words, so that when you look at that yellow sticky, you'll say, oh yes, I know what I want to say about that. And it will help you to write it. So go through and think about this. Take as long as you need to do this. Think about it. And if you've got, for example, if you've collected notes, either in a physical folder or on your computer, maybe you've been collecting notes for a while. So go to them and go through them as a source for these ideas. And at the end of your thinking, however long that takes, you'll still have a pad of yellow stickies, but this time they'll all have things written on them. So what you want to do now is to lay these out in front of you, either on your desk or on a pad of, somebody said to me it's easier if you put them on a pad of paper, because then if you get interrupted before you're finished, it's easy to put them away and bring them back again. But if you can, just spread them out on your desk in front of you where you're working. And each one of these yellow sticky notes will remind you of something that you want to write. So look at everything that you've written and decide which one you want to talk about first at the beginning of this chapter. Take some time, think about it, and then when you collect one, say, okay, I'm going to start with this topic. And now you just type. Type whatever comes into your head about this topic. And remember, it's a first draft. It's going to be edited. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it down there. So thinking about what's on your yellow sticky note, just write down what you want to say on the subject. When you've finished, take that yellow sticky note off your desk, screw it up, and throw it in the garbage. This is very satisfying, and it helps you to realize that you actually are getting on with this. Then you just rinse and repeat, and you go through and you decide the next subtopic, and you just write what you want to say about that subject, and then you take that yellow sticky and you roll that up in a ball and throw that in the garbage. Now this does two things, and this is one of the huge advantages of doing this in a low-tech way with yellow stickies instead of doing it on your screen where you have to keep scrolling to see it. First of all, you can see all your ideas for the chapter all at once in front of you. Next, the act of physically taking the yellow sticky note and throwing it away is satisfying. It helps you to understand that you're actually doing something. And finally, as long as you have one yellow sticky on that page, you still have something to write on this chapter. But when the last one is gone and you have a blank page or you have an empty desk in front of you, you're done. That chapter, the first draft, is done. You can now pat yourself on the back and say, well done. And then simply rinse and repeat. Do the same thing for each chapter with your yellow sticky notes and go through the process with each one. Some of the people that I have worked with in their business sessions on this have told me that they felt skeptical about it at the beginning because they're used to doing absolutely everything on their computer. But once they tried it, they found that it really was helpful. And so there is this thing called writer's block, which I'll probably address at some time in the future. But if you feel blocked at all, this is a great antidote for writer's block, because you just get everything in front of you and just kind of spew it out, and then concern yourself with sorting it out later in the editing. So I hope that you'll take this and use it to actually get started and get those words down. And I'll talk to you next week.